They say you lose some, you gain some, and that's the case for the Tshwane Mayor Solly Msimanga. Remember in April, he lost his race to become the DA federal chair, and now nearly 4 months later, the party expresses its faith in him to become the face of its Gauteng campaign. The DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, has just made the announcement on the DA's candidate for premier in the 9 provinces. What does this mean for the divided DA? Should the ANC be scared? And what about coalition politics? The Polit Bureau is now in session. Welcome, I'm Alvin Simpier. In studio to discuss the latest developments in the opposition politics is Matume Letsoalo, the Mail and Guardian political editor. And from our Cape Town studios, we are joined by Daniel Silke, political analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me this morning. We were expecting the DA to make the announcement that these are the candidates for all 9 provinces, but the announcement was only for Gauteng. Matume, let me start with you. Any surprises there?
Yeah, no. With the announcement of Solly Msimanga, I was not surprised at all. We know that, senior party leaders preferred him than Makajule Ghana, who's the member of the provincial legislature. Msimanga, as mayor, he has done a lot of work around fighting corruption in Tshwane. So I was not surprised at all.
A lot of cleaning up. And the reason why, for instance, somebody like Makajule Ghana was seen to be the front runner was because he launched a public campaign, and it was very early in the race that he launched that public campaign.
Yeah, look, and it was expected that, with the support of the Gauteng leader, I remember when he launched this thing, I was the campaign. I was there, and the Gauteng leader, John Mutli, was also there.
Solly Msimanga was there as well.
Solly Msimanga was there as well. So, both leaders, Solly Msimanga and John, we thought that they are endorsing his campaign. They are endorsing him as the premier candidate for the DA. But apparently, a study was done where they looked at which leader is likely to win the DA Gauteng. You know that the party has invested a lot in Gauteng, which is the economic hub. If you win this, you have Western Cape, then you know that you have weakened the governing party. So DA has actually identified 3 provinces, which is Gauteng, the Northern Cape, and Western.
And the Western Cape. Let me bring in Daniel. Daniel, let's quickly speak about this announcement that Solly Msimanga will be the provincial face for the DA in Gauteng. And considering, of course, that you had Solly Msimanga being at Makajule Ghana's campaign launch, to call it that, is it at all strange that Makajule Ghana may at this point feel that I was betrayed?
Well, I think there's going to be a fair amount of feeling of betrayal across the board during the next number of days and weeks as we move into the finalization of all of these premier candidates. That's the nature of politics. There are going to be winners and losers, and there are going to be latecomers to the scene who manage to beat perhaps some of the more favored early runners in the campaign. So I do think, for all the problems within the DA, they're going to have to also clearly come to terms. Ghana himself is going to have to come to terms with this kind of a defeat that he has now suffered at the hands of Msimanga. And I do think that it does place an additional strain on any political party to undergo this particular process. There's enough time effectively now before we really embark upon the nuts and bolts of the election campaign to try and settle some of the ruffled feathers that there may well be. But I think Msimanga does bring, I think, a very solid personality to the DA.
Let me just quickly cut you there. We're going to try and see whether we can get some of the Q&A live from the press briefing that is currently underway in Johannesburg.
We had a very positive and an exciting federal executive this weekend where we considered many matters. Of course, one of the more pressing issues on the agenda was the consideration of premier candidates. We've had a very good process that has led us to this point, and federal executive were unanimous in the decision that says that Solim Simanga will be standing for us here in Gauteng as premier candidate here. It is quite exciting for us because we believe the election Gauteng has always been the battleground. It's a place where we've started to see change. It's a place where the DA already governs 2 metros and has already got the seedbeds for change. And if we want to see a change in South Africa, it starts here. It starts right here in Gauteng. Soli's been an incredible member of the DA for the last 14 years. He's worked his way up from the party and has consistently proved his commitment to the DA's values of freedom, fairness, opportunity and diversity. He espouses the very things that I fight for on a consistent basis, which is the idea of a non-racial and a prosperous South Africa. And in fact, while he's been serving as the executive mayor of the great city of Tshwane, the nation's capital, he's held various positions here in the Democratic Alliance. He's before served as chairman in this particular province. He served as a member of the Gauteng legislature, and also he has worked in various leadership positions, as I've stated. Before that, he was a professional staff member for a number of years.
Okay, we seem to have lost the audio there. We'll try and re-establish the audio there with, where we have the DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, there making that announcement that Solim Simanga is the provincial campaign face for the DA. Daniel, you can continue with the point that you're making earlier on.
I think Simanga is a strong candidate for the DA. I think that he does present an attractive face. He does, in a sense, augment the candidacy of Mmusi Maimane. I think from that point of view, the two of them look as though they're going to work pretty well together. And remember, too, for Maimane, who has been under a degree of strain within the broader party, perhaps even criticized on other issues within the broader party, he also needs to assemble a group of candidates themselves who augment him and complement him as the campaign goes forward. And I think
Daniel,
he will be trying to stamp his own authority on
Daniel,
the candidate
apologies
selection.
again. This is the nature of live TV. We've managed to re-establish that audio link with that press briefing that's taking place where Mmusi Maimane is speaking to journalists.
If you're a member of the DA, join the DA, you're more than welcome to stand for a position. And we then engage a very rigorous process, and that process requires a few things to happen. It requires that each of the candidates submit an extensive plan for government. They come and they defend their plan for government. It is assessed by a panel that is comprised of members from the national federal executive, but also from the regional provincial executives. They sit together and we build competence into what we do.
Okay, we're certainly not, we're not winning with this one. Daniel, I'm going to give you another bite, and apologies again, the nature of live TV. You can continue with your point about comparing, for instance, Mmusi Maimane and the battles that he faces versus the battle that Simanga faces. And I also want you to take into consideration what's been happening in the city of Tshwane. And now that you find that, for instance, last week, the ANC there had a press briefing where they said that there are evidence, or they have evidence of irregularities and corruption within the city, and they say that Simanga should go.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that the battle lines are drawn here. The ANC are jittery in Gauteng, and the ANC clearly will attempt now to besmirch or undermine the name of Solim Simanga. We've seen it already begin last week, as though the ANC were well prepared, in a sense, for the victory of Simanga as the premier candidate for the DA. And I expect this kind of mudslinging, in a sense, to continue now for some months, as the ANC attempts to link the name of Simanga to some form of irregularities. The question is, will this stick and will this plague Msimanga as a candidate going forward? And the ANC will need to come with substantial proof on the issue and in fact take the matter further. I'm not convinced though that that kind of allegation is going to stick. I think we're going to see all sorts of mudslinging and allegations across South Africa from all political parties during the course of the campaign. It's going to get lost in something of the rhetoric here. But ultimately, this is all to me about Maimane now trying to shore up his own support base within the DA, and Msimanga presents, I think, a solid force together with Maimane, particularly in terms of trying to attack that all-important Gauteng vote. So I think from the DA's point of view, I think they've found a personable mayor of Tshwane who has a high profile, notwithstanding these allegations that have been against him. And I think on that basis, the DA can say, look, at least we've gone through this process. We need to clean up our national act in a sense. We need to get our spokespeople to speak with one voice. And if that can be done, then I think it will help the Gauteng process going forward.
Well, we continue this discussion after this quick break, especially in light of some of these allegations that have been raised by the ANC. Will the ANC be able to be an opposition that will be able to decampaign the DA's chances of becoming the leader of Gauteng in this particular elections that will be taking place in 2019? We'll continue with the Polit Bureau after this short break.